Homework wow. Accent, a mode of pronunciation, such as a pitch or tone, emphasis pattern, or intonation and characteristic. Ascribed status, social status. For example, race or gender that people have little or no choice about occupying. Assimilationist model, the process of change a minority ethnic group may experience when moving to a country where another culture dominates. Culture, a distinctive human activity, which refers to customary behavior and beliefs that are learned through interaction with society and include knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a person as a member of society. Discrimination, actions, behaviors, policies, and practices that harm a group and its members. Ethnic group. A group of people who share certain beliefs, values, habits, customs, and norms because of their common background. Ethnicity, a group of people who share a group of people who share a culture, nationality, ancestry, and or language, and physical appearances not associated with ethnicity. Hypodescent, a rule of descent that assigns social identity on the basis of ancestry, applied mainly in the United States and used to divide American society into groups that have been unequal in their access to wealth, power, and prestige. Intrinsic racism, belief that a perceived racial difference is sufficient reason to value one person less than another, makes race a person who has parents of two different ethnic classifications. Multicultural, opposite of the assimilationist model, encourages the practice of cultural ethnic traditions. Prejudice, devaluing a group because of its assumed behavior. Values, capabilities, or attributes. Race generally represents a group of people who share similar physical characteristics, skin color, hair texture, facial features, etc., and a common historical background. Racial classification, politicized system that determines racial classification, politicized system that determines access to resources, including jobs, voting, districts, and federal funding of programs, often having the effect of controlling and limiting opportunities for minorities. Stereotypes, fixed ideas, often unfavorable about group characteristics. Biological or adoptive parents. Typically name their children, but some children and adults have preferred nicknames. Most people understand that individuals have a right to ask others to address them by their preferred names. This understanding sometimes breaks down, however, when considering racial and ethnic minorities. Some would rather be called for people of color. Some majority group members seem confused or annoyed when certain subgroups of people of color change the name by which they would like to be known. Some may fear that they might be considered lacking in understanding of diversity if they inadvertently use a term that members of a group no longer generally accept. In this situation, a Latino colleague suggested simply asking people which term they prefer others use when describing their group. They will most likely be glad to provide the information and be gratified that others care enough to ask. For example, some individuals whose first language is Spanish or whose ancestors' first language was Spanish prefer to be called Latino or Chicano. Rather than Hispanic. Hispanic was a term the U.S. government began applying to Spanish-speaking groups of differing cultural backgrounds several decades ago. Some associate the term with Spanish conquerors who had little regard for the cultures of the people they vanquished. They dislike the word Hispanic for that reason. Others say the term Hispanic obscures the cultural diversity among Spanish-speaking groups. It masks the diversity of various cultures, including Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, It masks the diversity of various cultures, including Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, individuals from countries in Central and South America, Cubans, and those of a combination of racial and ethnic heritages. Likewise, the term Asian American refers to individuals of Japanese, Chinese, Hmong, Korean, and other ancestries that differ markedly from one another. American Indians, too, have divergent cultures. They may be members of more than 550 federally recognized tribal nations, ranging from the Apache to the Ojibwa. EEOC guidance on accents and English-only rules on another matter related to Chapter 6 of the Byrd text references, but does not fully explain the equal employment opportunities guidance on accents and English-only rules in the workplace unless different treatment based on an employee's accent is justified because the accent materially interferes with that person's ability to do the job. Such treatment violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act's ban on national origin discrimination. Similarly, English-only rules violate the law unless they are reasonably necessary for the safe and effective operation of the business. On a related note, That was funny. Mm. Mm. Civil rights. Civil right is an enforceable right or privilege. Civil right is an enforceable right or privilege with it interfered with by another gives rise to an act for injury. Civil rights movement. A social justice movement in the United States in the early 1960s advocated equal access and equal opportunity for Black Americans. Colorblind difference is seen but not acknowledged as being different. Attempting to promote a non-racist policy. Constructionist theory explains racial and ethnic groups as socially constructed based on byproducts of economic, political, or social forces. As those forces change, so do the racial and ethnic byproducts. Critical race theory explains racism as a pervasive practice that has become ingrained as the norm. Ethnicity is a more contemporary way to denote different cultures and origins, including people of color. Individual racism, interplay of stereotypes, prejudices, and discrimination that manifest as support unequal treatment of and practices with diverse groups. Institutional racism, differential effects of policies. Differential effects of policies, practices, and laws. Differential effects of policies, practices, and laws on members of certain racial groups. Deliberate or non-deliberate handling or acceptance of institutional procedures, qualifying for a home mortgage, and fair hiring practices, inequitable admissions criteria that have unjustly limited the opportunities of certain groups of people of color, a term used to designate groups race, socially constructed category that denotes differences among people. Race, socially constructed category that denotes differences among people and is politically sustained to assign people to categories. Racialization, processes by which racial meanings are attached to particular issues and the manner in which race appears to be a key factor in the ways they are defined and understood. Racism, process whereby socialized racist notions become integrated with actions and practices in such a way that these actions and practices become actualized and reinforced through routine situations. Structural theory explains racism as a byproduct of economic, political, and social forces, actions, upon race and ethnicity. Although related to the construct of race, ethnicity is separate and has a profound impact on interactions in the workforce. Ethnic groups are identified Ethnic groups are identified in relation to the dominant culture of the society in which they live, and their ethnic identity requires shaped perceptions that there are within group similarities and across group differences. However, all persons within any particular group are not necessarily carbon copies of one another. In addition, ethnicity can only emerge in the context of relationships. In addition, ethnicity can only emerge in the context of relationships and interaction with others. Ethnicity is created and recreated based upon situations and the volition of the individuals engaged in interaction with one another. In reference to workforce diversity, the characteristics of minority or subordinate groups in the United States are unequal treatment, distinguishing physical or cultural traits, involuntary membership, awareness of subordination, in-group marriage, and minority members lacking the knowledge about the ways of working, being and knowing Native American culture. Accent and mode of pronunciation, such as a pitch or tone, emphasis, pattern, or intonation in a characteristic. Ascribe status, social status, that people have little or no choice about occupying. Assimilationist model, the process of change a minority ethnic group may experience when moving to a country where another culture dominates. Culture, a distinctive human activity which refers to customary behavior and beliefs that are learned through interaction with society and include knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a person as a member of society. Discrimination, actions, behaviors, policies, and practices that harm a group and its members. Ethnic group, a group of people who share certain beliefs, values, habits, ethnic group, a group of people who share certain beliefs, values, habits, customs, and norms because of their common background. Ethnicity, a group of people who share a culture, nationality, ancestry, and/or language, and physical appearance is not associated with ethnicity. Hypodescent, a rule of descent that assigns social identity on the basis of ancestry, applied mainly in the United States and used to divide American society into groups that have been unequal in their access to wealth, power, and prestige. Intrinsic racism, belief intrinsic racism, belief that a perceived racial difference intrinsic reasons. Belief that perceived racial difference is sufficient reason to value one person less than another makes us a person who has parents of two different ethnic classifications. Multicultural assimilationist model encourages the practice of cultural ethnic traditions, prejudice, and dividing a group because of its assumed behaviors, values, capabilities, or attributes. Race generally represents a group of people who share similar physical characteristics, skin color, hair texture, facial features, etc., and a common historical background. Racial classification. Politicized system that determines access to resources, including jobs, voting districts, and federal funding programs, often having the effect of controlling and limiting opportunities for minorities. Stereotypes. Fixed ideas, often unfavorable about group characteristics. Time to fail this quiz. Time to fail the 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 quiz. Take it. The term blah. What the heck? What the heck? Wait. Okay. Oh, never mind. For a second I was like, wait, that doesn't have anything to do with what we read at all. But actually it's from the first part, so. Next. Something is generally regarded as a secondary dimension of diversity. What? Where was that? Where? I didn't read that anywhere. Race, age, I don't know. If 75% of all information technology specialists are men, something exists in that profession. These questions are not for what I read at all. Come on. What the heck? Although I should be able to answer the question. Gender-based. Something denotes different cultures and origins, whereas blah is socially constructed and denotes differences among people based largely on skin color. A colorblind ideology encourages widespread discussion of topics. Is used as a tool to challenge legal rights of social minorities. The movement of men into occupations mainly held by women. Yep, here we go, folks. A question not from our reading. Here we go. I have no idea because I didn't read that, and it wasn't in our required reading for the unit. Which of the following is not one of the four indicators? Yep, here we go. We're getting questions. Thank you. Thanks. We didn't have to read this. I'm going to skip all questions that are not from the reading for now. A private university's policy is to give special consideration to children and grandchildren of its graduates, something are conferred based on characteristics. We didn't read about unearned privileges. Where nothing about our unit had anything to do with that. Okay, yeah, that's a part of our discussion, but it wasn't from the 2 chapters that I was told to read. What did I have to read all that other stuff that was listed in? Man, what the heck? It doesn't have anything to do with the pay gap. Man, that's horrible. Who would have thought the movement of what if it is the glass cliff effect? I have no idea what this is called because I didn't do the reading for it. And it doesn't indicate whether the quiz is open book or not. So I'm kind of tempted to just look it up. Because I don't want to just guess. It's probably not Glass Cliff. I've literally never heard of this. Mill. I mean, I've heard of the glass ceiling, but this doesn't seem like an example of a glass ceiling. Maybe it's the elevator. But doesn't the glass ceiling refer to... Dang it. It told us to only read chapter 4 and 6. And then all those other extra articles after that, but... How did I miss? Was there like a lesson 1.3 or something that I missed? This one, it's just going to be a straight up guess. I don't know. I still don't know. This is another one right here. I'm just going to guess this. That was funny. Did I answer all the rest of these? There's one at the end here. Still have to guess this one. See what we have. Religion or age? Great. It's gotta be this. God dang it. Hey. Come on. I'm gonna get tons of points off for this stuff. For all these missed questions. Screw you. They won't even let me look at the ones I got wrong. Where's my grade in the class now? What did I get on that quiz? 14 out of 20. So I missed 3 questions. Of course, it was probably the 3 questions I didn't know the answer to. Now, I need to move on to the next assignment, but there's no way for me to salvage my grade on this quiz. Like, beg the professor to let me retake it or tell the professor that a bunch of the questions were not from the reading. I read everything that was relevant. Well, not everything, but I didn't read. (1.2) content. It does not specify that we need to read anything other than chapter 4 and 6. And what about all these? Nice job. What is this lesson about? Distinguish between race and ethnicity. Chapter 4 and 6. Reading. Yes, I didn't read all these other articles, but how about this one? Well, let's see. It says you're not required to read this. But let me just see if this has the answers for the quiz that I was missing. Oh crap, this is long. Transgender coworkers. I think I'm going to look over chapter 5 in our textbook, which I think is the one that was missing, or that was referred to in the quiz. I believe it's gotta be this one. It's gotta be this. It's gotta be. I'm gonna look. List of terms. Maybe this was the answer to that one. Well, thank God I got this one right. I got this question right. This is an actual term. Look at that. So the answer to the question was not glass ceiling, it was glass elevator. Wait, there was no glass elevator answer to the question in the quiz, was there? No, actually, the answer to that one other question was glass elevator, escalator. It was not this one. Wait, what? Okay, there's only a subtle difference between these two terms. And glass ceiling was not the answer to any of the questions, technically. But yep, that confirms that there were questions from chapter 5 on the quiz. And then the secondary characteristic thing question, what was that from? I don't even know if I got it wrong or not. Well, you get to watch me write this email because I'm not going to. It's not an email that is necessarily has to be confidential. It's just asking about the quiz. Again. Quiz. Quiz, Unit 1, Quiz A. Great. I got a 70% on the quiz. The one thing that was going to help me raise my grade, and nope, not even that's going to help me here. Oh man, this class sucks. Why? Why? 14 out of 20 on the quiz. Why? Guess how much I've screwed myself already just from the first week of this class. Let's figure out our best possible grade now. Can't retake this. The unearned privilege. There was a question about unearned privilege too. That wasn't even in the ratings either. And guess what? But yeah, are these slides on unearned privilege part of the lesson? And it's part of the quiz? I didn't know I had to study this for the quiz. Okay. What was I about to do? Oh, I was about to calculate my best possible grade. I calculated it a couple of days ago, or before taking this quiz, my best possible grade was a 97%, I think. So now let's determine what it is now. That was funny. So I have to subtract. All we have to do is figure out how many points I've lost overall so far. Wait, no. Hold up. Yeah, all we have to do is determine how many points we've lost and then divide it by 610, I think. Great. What are all these extra calculations I did? I guess that's not... Okay. I have to double check to see if it's 610. I keep having to double check. Dang it. So I lost 6 for the quiz. I lost 10 points on that one. Lost 3.5 on that one. And that's it. Okay. Divide by 610. Ooh. My best possible grade in the class is now a 96%. I've lost 3.2 basic. Stop. I hate rounding. I lost 3.2% on total so far. So if you round down, it's going to end up being 96% is the highest possible grade. So anyways, view these slides, complete all activities in lesson 1.2 content, including reading and video clips. I did not finish all of those yet. And you would think, oh, you're supposed to do all that stuff before you take the quiz. How many quiz questions were from these other sources I did not read yet? And guess what? Guess what, buddy? It says that this assignment, oh wait, no. It says this is not required. This is not a required source. See? Not required. Boom. I didn't watch this yet. Ooh, nice. Crash course video. Oh. Yeah, now I have to wear earphones. How long is this? This is a required thing for our class. That's it.
How do you define
10 minutes. The like to dislike ratio is actually not good. It's a little bit more than, the dislike ratio is a little bit more than 10%. Backlash.
race? How do you define race? If you had to describe why you think you're a member of one race and someone else was a member of a different one, you'd probably focus on appearances. Your skin, your hair, maybe even the structures of your bodies and faces. But most of the time, those physical criteria mean different things depending on the culture you're a part of. An obvious example is skin color. We use the words white and black to describe two races, but the distinction in skin color between those races isn't as clear-cut. A white person who spent the summer at the beach might come home with brown skin, but getting a tan doesn't change their race. And light-skinned black people may have skin that's not all that darker than that tan. Clearly, race is about more than just the literal color of someone's skin. So let's talk about race and why it's a topic that goes more than skin deep. Much like gender, race is a socially constructed category. In this case, it's used to categorize
Time for copyright strike on my video.
people who share biological traits that the society thinks are important. So you might be wondering, how can race be both a social construct and something based on biology? Well, the key part of that definition of race is the last part. What a society thinks is important. Sure, skin color varies widely across regions of the world, but so does eye color, and we don't consider people with blue eyes a different race than people with brown eyes. And while physical traits are often used to describe or identify a race, they're not always applied consistently. Take, for example, the so-called one-drop rule in the United States, where even the smallest amount of African American ancestry is enough to classify someone as black rather than white. The opposite, however, isn't true. Someone with one black parent and one white parent is almost never considered white. Plus, people from different places or different time periods have defined racial groups differently. Nowadays, light-skinned people of European descent are typically considered white in the United States. It doesn't matter whether your heritage is British or Irish or Italian or Polish or German, you're just white. But that wasn't the case a century ago. In the early 1900s, anyone who wasn't white Anglo-Saxon Protestant was considered ethnic. So, for example, if you were Italian or Irish, you weren't considered white. Likewise, today, being Jewish is often seen as an ethnicity in the United States, but Europeans are more likely to think of being Jewish as a race. So that raises the question, what's the difference between ethnicity and race? Well, ethnicities are socially constructed categories based on cultural traits that a society finds important, rather than strictly biological traits. Essentially, an ethnic group is a group that has a shared cultural heritage. Language, traditions, religion, these are all types of culture that can determine your ethnic background. Two people of different races might share an ethnicity, and conversely, two people of the same race might be of totally different ethnicities. Japanese and Vietnamese people are both considered Asian, but they come from different cultural backgrounds. In fact, a term that many people think refers to race, Hispanic, actually refers to ethnicity. To explore this a little more, let's go to the thought bubble to talk about the difference between the terms Hispanic, Latino, and Latin American. The term Hispanic first appeared as a racial category in the US Census in 1970 as a way of describing those whose heritage originated in a Spanish-speaking country. Before then, the census referred to those people as Spanish Americans, even though tracing back their origins to Spain would mean going way, way back for many of them, and for others, it'd be totally inaccurate. But in day-to-day conversation, most people from Spanish-speaking backgrounds were usually referred to by the country of their heritage, like Mexican American or Cuban American, or sometimes more broadly as Latin American. This last term is also where we get the word Latino and the degendered Latinx. It's a shorter version of the Spanish word Latinoamericano, and it refers to someone whose heritage originates from nations in the Americas that are south of the United States, including Mexico, all of South America, and the Caribbean. Now, not all Hispanics are Latino. Being from Spain, for example, makes you Hispanic, but not Latino, and not all Latinos are Hispanic. Brazilians speak Portuguese, meaning that they are not considered Hispanic. But regardless of which term you're using, Hispanic or Latino, neither of these distinctions are based on physical appearance. Unlike race, which is based on observable physical traits, ethnicities aren't. And in fact, two people of the same ethnicity can be entirely different races. For example, both Cameron Diaz and Rosario Dawson are Cuban Americans, which means they are both Hispanic, but Cameron Diaz is white and Rosario Dawson is black. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Though race is more commonly used by society as a way to organize people and distribute power, both race and ethnicity play a role in how people are perceived and therefore the opportunities that are available to them. A person's race influences a whole host of social outcomes, from their education to their income to their experiences with the criminal justice system. But which races or ethnicities are advantaged or disadvantaged depends on when and where we're talking about. For example, in the United Kingdom, there's been a lot of unrest about immigration from Eastern Europe, especially Poland. Incidents of hostility and violence against Polish immigrants have increased in the wake of the UK's exit from the European Union. But while Eastern Europeans are considered an ethnic minority in the UK, people in the US are much more likely to think of Eastern European immigrants as just white. They're not thought of as a minority. And that's because what constitutes a minority is more complex than you might think. Sociologists define a minority as any category of people who are distinguished by physical or cultural difference that a society sets apart and subordinates. Now, notice that there are two important parts of that definition. First, minorities share a distinctive identity based on physical or cultural traits. Second, minorities occupy a lower status in society and have less access to the levers of societal power. Notice how that definition doesn't say anything about the size of the group. In sociology, a minority group's relative size isn't important. For example, women are considered a minority even though they make up about 51% of the United States. And a group that's a minority in terms of size can still be a majority in terms of power. South African apartheid is an example of this. From 1948 to 1994, a white minority maintained a system of racial segregation and discrimination against black South Africans. Right now, non-Hispanic whites are the majority group in the United States in terms of sheer size, making up 61% of the US population. But that's rapidly changing. As of 2015, babies of color being born now outnumber non-Hispanic white babies, and 5 states are already minority-majority states: California, Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, and Hawaii. How can a state or country be minority-majority? Isn't that like an oxymoron? Well, for one thing, even if non-Hispanic white Americans no longer make up more than half of the country, they'll likely remain a larger group than any other single race. But also, to be a minority in the sociological sense of the word, a group must be in a position of disadvantage. And as we've discussed many times before, non-Hispanic white Americans tend to have higher incomes, live in better neighborhoods, and are more likely to have more prestigious jobs and better educations than racial and ethnic minorities. But before we can make comparisons between different racial groups in the US, we should talk about the races that make up the United States. The US Census uses 6 different categories of race when collecting data about the demographics of the country. White refers to anyone who reports their origins as being from Europe, the Middle East, or Northern Africa. So Irish, German, Italian, their origins as being race when collecting data about the demographics of the country. White refers to anyone who reports their origins as being from Europe, the Middle East, or Northern Africa. So Irish, German, Italian, Lebanese, Iranian, Moroccan, they're all ethnicities that go under the heading of white. Yes, you heard me right. People of Middle Eastern descent are categorized as white by the census, even if they often aren't treated as if they're white. Why? Well, what's now become known as white originates from a term to refer to people of Indo-European descent, the Caucasian race. The term Caucasian started as a reference to the Caucasus Mountains, which run through the modern-day countries of Russia, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Back when race was understood as a purely biological phenomenon, everyone from Europe all the way down to India was lumped into one Caucasian group. So yesterday's Caucasian contained most of the people who count as today's white, but also captured groups that nowadays get labeled as Asian, such as Indians or Pakistanis. Now, many Hispanic Americans are also counted as white in the census. Hispanic is considered an ethnicity, not a race, for census purposes. So in the 2010 census, 52% of Hispanic Americans identified themselves as white, while 36.7% identified themselves as some other race, and smaller percentages identified themselves as one of the other racial groups. Black or African Americans are the second largest racial group in the United States and are defined as individuals with African heritage, including those who are Afro-Caribbean. Since many African Americans' ancestors were forcibly brought to the United States as slaves, the countries that their ancestors originated from are often unknown. To this day, the remnants of slavery and the southern plantation systems can be seen in the geographic distribution of Black Americans around the country. Though many Black Americans moved to northern cities during the Great Migration of the early 20th century, most remained in the South, in a region that has come to be known as the Black Belt of the United States. The third racial category used in the census is American Indian or Alaska Native, which refers to anyone whose origins are indigenous to the contiguous United States and Alaska. Though Native Americans numbered in the millions when Europeans first arrived in the 15th century, today they control only 2% of the country's land area, make up just 0.2% in Alaska. Indian or come to be known as the Black Belt of the United States. The third racial category used in the census is American Indian or Alaska Native, which refers to anyone whose origins are indigenous to the contiguous United States and Alaska. Though Native Americans numbered in the millions when Europeans first arrived in the 15th century, today they control only 2% of the country's land area, make up just 0.2% of the US population, and remain severely disadvantaged in terms of access to education and income. The fourth census category for race, Asian, refers to origins in Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including China, India, Japan, Pakistan, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The largest subgroup of Asian Americans are those of Chinese ancestry, who make up a little less than 1/4 of the total Asian American population. The fifth census category is Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders, which refers to people whose origins are from Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific Islands. As I mentioned before, Hawaii is one of the states where a minority race is the majority race for the state, and in fact, it's the only state that has always been minority majority. The last census category is just a catch-all, some other race. You might remember that about 1/3 of Hispanic Americans fall into this group. If a person lists a country of origin that doesn't fit in one of the other categories, they get stuck in this group. You might be thinking that these categories don't seem like the racial groups you typically think of, and that's okay. In all likelihood, the way that the government defines races will continue to change to incorporate our society's changing notions of race and ethnicity. And something that should be clear from everything we talked about today is that races aren't fixed, immutable categories. They are defined by societies. Today we learn the difference between races.
Nice job. You don't really see bad comments unless you click newest first. I just want to see. It's kind of weird. Okay. It says not required. Tips for working with transgender coworkers. And guess what? Why is this in this particular lesson? Why? Why is this in the lesson about race and ethnicity? How many pages? Epic. Video. TED Talk. I need to put earphones on. I'm just refusing. Put earphones on. This video is automatically going to get removed because it's a TED Talk. Oh, yeah. Oh. Wow, this got very few views. I wonder why. How did this get so few views and no comments?